glad to be here with you. It's a pleasure. And also with the invitation of Sophie. We know Sophie very well with each other. Sophie has worked with me. So she has seen the Federation from inside, as an insider, when I was taking this position. That was in 2016, early 2016, so very quickly. Sophie joined me and has kept on working with us afterwards. And she's in particular now in charge of taking care of our archives. You say archives, right? That were upside down. It's paper archives that we have for the Federation because it's an old organization. And so we are organizing that. And just before starting, we had a short talk, and it was about that. So Sophie is a colleague and a dear friend, so I'm very glad to be here too, for that reason too, and to be with you. So I hesitated. I thought of making something like a class with some kind of PowerPoint or other stuff, but I thought the better because it's a limited time, will be that I tell you like a few words about like the fashion industry and the Federation and its role, and then I have a dialogue with you and answer questions. I'm sure you have questions, even if the first one takes a little bit of time, then there will be a flow of questions. So it's better to do like that rather than focusing on one or such aspect. So briefly, in the let's say French system, there is a set of professional organization, like in the case also in the States, where you have like industrial organization, retail organization, and the CFDA, and the Council of Fashion. But you know that Fashion Designers of America, and we are, let's say somehow, but it's different. The equivalent as concerns Fashion Week, as it's of the CFDA. The biggest organization in the world in that field, so the CFDA in the US, the British Fashion Council in London, the Camera della Moda in Milan, and us. And they are each country has its own organization, which is more or less linked to the industry and to manufacturing, which is not exactly our case. The one which is very similar to us is the Camera della Moda. It is similar to us because, as far as we are concerned, we have a selective organization. Federation. What does that mean? Federation. It federates. It gathers. It federates. What does it federate? You know, the origin of the federation. But Sophie knows that better than me, and perfectly. But it was the chamber of the couture, of the Parisian couture. But it was also for like clothing for women and girls and Fiat and little girls in 1867, right? I'm not wrong. 81? 68. Okay. In general, I say 67, but I know I'm wrong. So. And then it became somehow, and that was funded by Worth. Anyhow, and then it became somehow closer, the Chambre syndicale, the syndicate for couture in 1911.
Yes.
Oh, good. And then what happened is that in the 60s there was this new movement, these new trends, new designers, and I mean all over the world. And it was also the case of Marie Quant, etc., in the UK. All that movement. And these designers at that time, not going to make a course on history, because once again, Sophie could do that, and will do that, and has done that extremely well. So anyhow, this créateur de mode, not yet Jean-Paul Gaultier and Thierry Mugler at that time, but the Kenzo, and which was not still Kenzo, Jungle Jap in 1970, and the Castelbajac a little bit later on who are still doing a great job. And others, they decided to gather, and Sonia Riquel. And the question was to know in which professional organization they would go. And there was others organization. One of them was the organization of ready-to-wear. And the story of this organization of ready-to-wear, which is called Fédération Française du Prêt-à-Porter, féminin, was interesting because it came from several sources, and one of the things is that in the 50s, there are people I have known, in fact, when I started in this industry in the 80s, who went to the US to see what were the new techniques for manufacturing. And so they didn't create it, but they developed the federation for that reason, their federation. And others, or other also companies or brands, and coming from the, I don't know, the Sentier in English, which was a small district where like in the city, when you see, which is rather informal. And then also the manufacturers, the people, the producers. So all of them were in that federation. And the Chambre syndicale de la couture at that time was closer to the very Parisian and closer to the cultural world, to the artistic world. And then these designers decided to join that organization and not the other, which has created a trauma, and this trauma is still a bit around. I like the line saying that to change somebody, you have to start with his grandfather or grandmother. So this keeps on, but then it's calmed down. And then the people who pushed that, I've known them very well. And one of them is a dear friend, Didier Grambach, has been the president of the Federation until 2014. And the other, of course, is Pierre Berger, with whom I worked for 20 years. I was the founder of Saint Laurent with Yves Saint Laurent. And they decided to create that move and to do so that the créateur de mode, we get back to this name, would join the couturier. That was the thing. And then how to qualify that? Because designers, there was no word. It's always difficult to find a good word. For instance, for me, the word ready to wear doesn't mean anything because we use the same word for ready to wear for Dior and Primark. I have nothing for Dior and nothing against Primark. I just say it's like a word of the 20th century. But at that time, it was decided, and Didier had this idea with the great designer André Poutman to call that créateur de mode, création. And that is interesting if we link that to the French culture. Because in English, if I'm not wrong, it's a créateur, the creators. I mean, it's God, something very strong, metaphysical. And this probably is linked to it was linked to the idea of the artistic dimension and aesthetic dimension of fashion, of that type of fashion. And so to differentiate from other types of fashion. And that was the thing. So créateur de mode. So the notion of créateur de mode, which has been ambiguous. You say, in English, we say fashion designers, fashion creators. It's a bit arrogant somehow, a bit créateur, megalomaniac, would say. But anyhow, this worked well. And then a new chamber was created, which was a chamber of ready-to-wear, of couturier and créateur de mode. And then another one, the chamber of menswear, more simple, menswear, like menswear, but masculine. And these three chambers have been gathered into one federation. And this is what's happening. And this is why, and this was in 1974. And this is why, until 2016 or 17, there has been an impossible name of the federation. It was called Fédération Française de la Couture, du prêt-à-porter des couturiers et des créateurs de mode. Something which is impossible to pronounce. And when I said maybe we should change that, then it was discussed, and some said around us said, "Oh no, it's nice to have a word that cannot be pronounced." Say, okay, I mean it's interesting, but I'm not sure it is the optimal decision to make. In let's say in 2016, 2020. So we changed a name. And we call that Federation of Haute Couture and Fashion. And you can see there is no more the word French. The only thing which is French is haute couture. And fashion meaning the ready-to-wear part. And haute couture being specificity, meaning that we push both sides. And it's very much underlying the policy, the strategy that we have developed and keep on developing. And why didn't we put the name French? Because we are, of course, it's French. It's settled in Paris. But we are very much international, extremely international. So we do our best to take care of employment and manufacturing in France, like in Europe, because there are many links with Italy, north of Portugal. So we take care of that. We take care of that, but it is not, let's say, it isn't formally part of the job, but it is the responsibility of the designers and luxury groups just to be, and big brands to pay attention to this very important aspect, and education, of course, and so on, and employment. But the idea is that it is very international because it's more Parisian than it is French. And Pierre Berger used to say a number of great things, and he said that the school of Paris, in the sense of school of thought, of school of painting, just not a school for educating, but a school just like a stream, you see, a movement. He said that the school of Paris for design, for fashion designers, was in the continuity of the school of painting between World War I and World War II. And I add myself also before World War I, meaning when the painters from all over the world, and the artists in particular from the US, just came to Paris to gather because they wanted to be in Paris, and Paris was, let's say, this melting pot, and it's still this melting pot of artists coming from all over the world. And so modernity made that it was artists, but then Paris didn't remain the global capital for art, although there is a great artistic tradition and also contemporary art. One of the many topics we can talk about here, and many things which are happening now with the fairs, etc., etc. But we can say that it is for fashion. So that is the idea, and it also explains sometimes the difficult relations between other federations, organizations, although we are all gathered, and we push also to be gathered in something which is called the Comité Stratégique de Filière, a very French thing, strategic committee for the whole sector industry, like fashion and textile, leather goods, etc., etc. But there has been always, and there is still, just to understand, that this country, you have this tradition which is more or less denied, but that you have Paris on one side and the province on the other side. And if you say the province, which is outside Paris, it's something which can be looked like a bit, the province. So we take care to say the province. Sometimes in a speech, like some month ago, I heard an important, man in the culture sector, the former president of Radio France and the Grand Palais said, many great things happen in the province. I like to say the province. It's favorable to say the province. And of course, there are great cities, Marseille and Lyon. It's not the question. I'm not like the Parisian. But I mean that it's cultural. It's anthropological. So the gap sometimes that there has been between Paris and the designers and the couturier and the designers, let's say, and the manufacturing, has been less natural in France because of this cultural, not antagonism, but cultural difference than it was in Italy. Because in Italy you have the district, which this doesn't work for couture. It works for ready-to-wear, what I say. Because you had the district, which has been a key factor, where all the players of an industry, the leather goods, the wool, etc., and Prato and others, just are gathered. So in France, it's different. In the west of France, there is a strong clothing industry. And for instance, if we look at the textile industry, fabrics, etc., yarns and fabrics, it's much more developed in Italy because there has been this push in France for developing more technical textiles, not so much for fashion and luxury. There is many things which we haven't time to deepen here. But probably also in the culture, it has to link with the understanding and the perception of what means competitiveness, of what means also, let's say, femininity, masculinity, that type of thing. There should be a psychoanalytical approach of that would deserve to be written. So at this moment, one of our job, my job, is just to try to cope with all that interest and to make some, I would say, some politics in the nice sense, hopefully, with the team, without losing our soul and without and while keeping constantly the same objective. And the objective is to do so that first the members of the federation are doing well, just to contribute to bring services, especially to the younger brands, but let's say more globally, including in sustainable development, in which we are extremely involved, and also tech matters, and also social, legal matters, and so on. We work also as a think tank on all that, which is very natural to me because of my own professional identity and career. And this is the first activity that we have, which is a classical professional organization. You know, it's funny because in the fashion industry, some people say, still again, say, oh no, the chambre syndicale, because the chambre syndicale, because we have 3 chambres syndicales within the federation, and quite a number of people are still lost with that. But chambre syndicale, there is also one for the chambre syndicale for the steel industry, for the automobile industry. So of course, the fashion journalists are not concerned, but the word chambre syndicale just is something which is professional organization for entrepreneurs. But that's the way I hope I was clear in this brief introduction of what's happening. So we work at the professional organization, classical one, which is not so classical, but still we just to do some classical stuff and to modernize and to help modernizing and innovating. And then the other part of our activity is to be like an agency, a large event agency for the Fashion Week and the Couture Week that we develop. And maybe one thing, haute couture is very specific to Paris, it's very Parisian. There is also one couture, Alta Moda in Roma. And it's interesting to know that it's very different. It is not much, there is not many links with the ready-to-wear and the fashion industry in Milan. Because in Milan it was very natural to develop, this industry developed very naturally with the big name that you know. In Roma it came through the cinema, so this through the costumes and costuming activity when the American studios delocalized part of the activity in Roma when the big studio had been set up in Roma. And this is, at that time, the couture activity developed in Roma, but it has not the same, of course, not the same importance. It is very respectable, but it has not the same importance as it has here. So that is for the Federation and for the Fashion Week. So concerning the Fashion Week, so I said globally, the idea is to constantly to be strong and to reinforce, let's say, the global leadership of Paris and of the Federation of Paris. There are not many industries, not many sectors in this country where there is a leadership at the global level. The French are sometimes they're right to be very proud of some technologies, but there is no, I mean, the tech leaders are in the California, and we could take many examples. But for the fashion industry, for sure, and this is Paris plays this very important role. But saying that, this is true for the Federation and the activity for the Federation, for which we need to be at the frontier of what's happening, the tech frontier, the environmental frontier. This is mandatory. This is our duty to do that. and for the Fashion Week to be the Fashion Week which is the most attractive and the most demanded and the most brilliant. But at the same time, we never, we do that while just doing ourselves. We never chase after, try to pick up some brands in other countries at the Fashion Week. Never. When the brands apply, we welcome the brands. But any brands, even when it's very well known, it has to go through our committees. And so there's a respectable relation. We have a especially strong relation with the Camera de la Moda. So sometimes, of course, we argue against each other because there's the problem of overlapping of days. I mean, calendars. I mean, it's a very complicated story. Very complicated story. People who are not in fashion cannot imagine how complicated it is. And the level, the intensity of drama, which is quite huge, because with these business impacts, the problem with models, the problem doing that in the afternoon or in the evening, the will of the designers, and the designer, it's not the CEOs, it's much more the designer and the communication directors. They are not the most easiest people. They are great, very talented. But I can tell you, it's complex. And it has a huge importance also, the timing and the organization for that. And if you have questions, I can illustrate that. But we, up to crossing fingers, at this moment it's okay. So we do, and I will tell you how. And so that's it. So this idea is to cope with our identity. I think very much that, in business schools in general, I was dean of a business school, and supposed to be a very good one, but in business school there is always this idea just to be global and to act locally. But there is also this other facet of our times, which is being local and act globally. And this is the point for need to be some local adaptations. But this is the point, just to be with our identity. This is for that reason, we push very much the development of the cult, and we do that, of the cultural identity of the Fashion Week and of the Couture Week. And also this notion of savoir-faire, know-how. And for Couture, this French notion of métier d'art, which is a specific word for arts and craft, I would say. But so of course this is very important. But the notion of creativity, and the link with culture is extremely important. And this is when we talk with designers, or when we talk with even with communication directors, it's very much, we talk very much about that. Then the press officers do the job, but they have this knowledge, and which can also help me saying that there is a very important ecosystem here in any fashion city. But let's say an ecosystem means the production houses, press offices, etc. There are locations which are problem with the costs, because it's complicated that too. But we do that, etc., etc. Maybe one or two more things. What I didn't say about the governance of the federation is that we have quite a number of structures for the reason I told you, but the federations itself, the globe which gather the whole, we have an executive committee, we are 6. There is one president, one elected president. There will be a new one in July. Up to now it's Ralph Toledano, from who used to be CEOs of Chloé and many other brands. And so there will be a new election. And then in this committee, we have Siné Toledano from the LVMH Fashion Group, we have Francesca Bellettini from Saint Laurent, Guillaume de Sèvres for Hermès, and Bruno Pavlovsky for Chanel, meaning the big four. I call them, the French expression for GAFA, for the tech industry. So I call them the French GAFA. So it's very important that they are here, but then they are not, I would say, dominating. That's not the point, but it's very important that they are in the heart, because they could do without the federation. They need us, not for the shows, but for the Paris identity and their Parisian French, and I'd say no, Parisian identity. And then we have an enlarged board of directors, and we have also, for these chambers, we have specific presidencies. For women's wear, it's Anouk Duranteau from Isabelle Marant, and for menswear, it's Elsa Lanzo from Rico Wens. So it's very international, because they have offices in Paris, but they have more settled in Italy with Rick, who is American. And so it illustrates what I said. And concerning the admission, I mean, I thought I was over with my academic life. Being an emeritus professor is fine, but it's okay. And I'm happy with that. But, you know, I thought I wouldn't be academic committees and that things and great things. An organization. But, I mean, it is exactly the same thing. We don't use admission, we don't use eligibility, we don't use waiting list, but it's the same story. For menswear and women's wear, there are committees which are chaired by the president of the corresponding chamber, and then we participate, and with the head of also the director for like official calendar relation with houses and some others in the team, and we have international journalists and international buyers, 2 or 3 of each, and they change each time, so it's confidential. So they change to avoid any bureaucratic syndrome. So it works well. In general, there is a kind of consensus, because the point of views are not the same, but it works well. And then it is consultative committees, and then they say what their evaluations. And afterwards, and I must add that the member of the team, including me, we don't vote. They vote, we don't vote. We can say things, we can influence, we can present, but we don't vote in a way. So sometimes there are good surprises, sometimes there are not good surprises. And then if I take my hat of executive president with Ralph, we never disagreed. We always, because like in academia, you know, this person should be, didn't get a good grade, but should get into the school. And no, it's the same story. And then the professors say no, we have to. So it's the same story, exactly the same story. And when we have like a late application, which is still very interesting, we organize a new selection committee. More often now with Zoom, because they're all over the world, they can be. This is the way it works. And to organize all that, we are a small team. We are let's say around 20, less than 20 more with interns and apprentices during the year, and also for Fashion Week, etc. But we are like flexible. We try to be agile. I think since I was there, I think I probably divided the average age by 2. When I arrived here, I think I was one of the youngest, which I found for myself enjoyable, but not optimal. So now it's, let's say, multi-generations. And in my team, the committee, we have the different members. One is in charge of the social affairs and legal affairs and public affairs. Another one on communication and development and partnership, with whom Sophie works on the archives. And another one, Frédéric Guillaume Elena, is in charge of the official calendar and relation with houses. Another one on emerging brands and the CFO. And that is the steering committee. But we have also young experts, like in digital sustainable development, doctoral students on traceability. And let's say all the think tank part, I drive it myself. So we try to be like modern organizations with like information circulating. We try just to be as any organization needs to be nowadays. There has been a lot of continuity in the past. You know, when I arrived, there was a very competent like delegate general. She was there. When I started in the 80s, she was already bye-bye. She was already I'd known her for many years. So she had started at the Federation in 1975. And before her, the woman before her, who retired in 1973, started in 1938. So some years ago, I asked Didier, you know, Didier told me, Didier Grambach, some years ago, he told me, you know, I wanted to know what happens with the archives, with the Germans wanted to take the archives during the war. And I said, oh, what did you do? What did you read about that? I mean, he told me, well, I just had to ask this lady, and just told him what happened in 1942. And he told me as if we were talking about something which would have happened like, you know, I saw this friend 3 years ago, and no, so that was 1942. Okay, so, wow. And one thing, maybe on education, we had a school which was called École de la Chambre syndicale de la couture, in which Karl Lagerfeld had studied, and Yves Saint Laurent, and Valentino too. And they, well, it was a little bit, let's say, it was doing well, a bit sleepy, I can say, maybe somehow. I'd say keeping on with the tradition of couture, etc., etc. And but then one of the first things I had to do was to change that and to merge that school with the Institut Français de la Mode, that had been the not the founder, but it was founded in 1986, but I arrived there in 1987. So I developed it with Pierre Berger and the team there, and my colleagues, and we merged that schools, and we wanted to have a very strong fashion schools, because what has happened is that let's say the countries in which this has been done in the best way, which modernized the best, is clearly the UK. In 20 years ago, once again, in the late 20th century, there was in the fashion school that everybody was talking about, where at that time St. Martin's, or Royal College of Art, and LCF was developing, and the FIT and the Parsons. And so in particular, at the very late, I mean in 2000 or something, we developed a program with IFM and the FIT. So there were strong links at the moment there, and they are still a joint program. But then at the same time, and IFM was created in '96, and when it was created, the models were the FIT and the Bunka College in Japan. And then things have changed, and I remember very well that, like when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, there was a big policy for creative industries, and they decided to develop and to merge, to join initiatives and LCF and St. Martin's and other schools, and creating the University of the Arts, and which was very, very smart. And also the Belgian schools started very well with the Antwerp and also Lacan with Brussels. So many things changed, and in Paris we had IFM, but which was sort of, for many reasons, it couldn't be merged for many years with the Collège Syndical, the professionals, with also other schools, which are good ones, like Duperrey and others. But we wanted to have the same thing, the global leader. So this is what we built up, and the groups invested a lot of money in that. and just to prepare the future. And well, you know that, and Sophie knows that also. She knows very well the professor there and researchers. So, in a nutshell, this is what I can say at the formal presentation. This is not what I did tell you. Is not very deep, I can say. It's just facts and an architecture of facts. But like, I can deepen anything and answer questions. I would be happy to talk with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions, thoughts?
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. Very amazing opportunity here to speak, first of all, so thank you. As a, especially as an economist, fashion is tied to, like so many other industries, the political and economic state of the world. And so the Federation being this sort of international representing body of the industry, to what extent would you say the Federation works with governments and policymakers to represent and regulate the industry in times of recession, political upheaval, perhaps during the pandemic or times of war, things like that?
It's a good question. We work quite closely in some aspects. But for instance, we work more on the sector industry basis for innovation and other things. In the past myself, I did other things, and I was like when Christine Lagarde, the current governor of the European Central Bank, was Minister of Economics, when I was heading the ESCP Business School, I was an advisor, made different missions on innovation, accounting standards, and different things. So this is not the same, not exactly the same thing, but in a way we are, in a way, let's say we are very close. I mean, we worked very regularly with the Ministry of Economics. Sophie mentioned the DEFI, which is a very, let's say, it's a specific body with a special tax on the clothing industry, which it's not a big amount. It's 10 million euros, and we have 1.5 million on that. But so they support us. We are members of this with other organization, and for the fashion policy at least, we are very proactive with the different set of organization, and also like we are trying to relaunch a technical and technology center, which is not doing so well, so that type of thing. And then we can have dialogues on other matters, and we work, and we make, the public affairs are more and more important. So in that sense, it's another point. And I can give you some examples. Like a good example is sustainable development. Because when everybody wants to go into that, and it's just an absolute necessity to progress rapidly. But then the question is and which is not mentioned, which hasn't been treated in a very surprising, not so surprising, unfortunately, way during, let's say, the political debates with the French elections, but in other countries, is how to make it precisely, and what it does mean, with which tools, and how to measure that. We are absolutely, and I could take other examples like for unsold products and other things, but we are much involved into that, and we are a voting member in Brussels on that topics, which is a group which is called the Product Environmental Footprint, the Green Policy of Brussels. Just to apprehend, just to understand what should be done, how not to measure it, which kind of metrics. And that is very complex because, and it's very important, it's crucial, because for instance, let's say if I take the case of the question of durability, how do you measure durability? Fast fashion will not measure durability in the same way that we measure durability. Durability doesn't mean the same thing. I don't want to accuse fast fashion because fast fashion enables many people to get nicely dressed. So that's not the point. But the paradigm is not the same. If you say, let's say, I read like recently a good academic article in an academic journal on durability, and they say that durability is stronger in the luxury industry as it is in fast fashion or ultra discount, even more. You see things, branding, fashion, or activities, and so the only problem with this article, they compared the evolution of second-hand prices, second-hand product prices. But for the luxury industry, they chose eBay, which proved that they are not very much aware of what it means. So now we have launched a research with young economists, and we work on doing that on Vinted and Vestiaire Collective. So we see, and we start having the results, and it's clear that the second-hand product prices for creative brand, luxury brands, just stay like this, where the others are getting down. So we cannot do that for every product. If we do that for T-shirts, jackets, sneakers, and I'm forgetting the fourth one, but for products. If you in the debate that we do have in Brussels, durability is seen in a different way. It means first there's this classical stuff which I don't agree so much with, which meaning there's physical durability and emotional durability. And then this is differentiated. So they say, and then emotional durability, there are many works and meetings, and members of the team, like Leonore, go there and work there. And the conclusion is it's just difficult to measure. It cannot be objective. So we cannot do this as metrics. So we have to focus on physical durability. And physical durability means crash test. Means how many times a T-shirt can be washed in the washing machine. So if it is 32 times, then it's better, of course, in terms of resistance, than for 23 times. So it is called the functional unit, etc., etc. So first, you see, it's delicate because when you have a T-shirt, a very refined with very fine, thin yarns, which is more refined, of course, it will be less solid than with bigger yarns. So that's an example. And so that means, and also the weight is supposed to be something which is not good for the planet, meaning that you have a beautiful coat of a great brand that you want to keep it and to give that to your children and your children to your grandchildren. It's not good to the planet because it's not considered to be durable in terms of weight, etc. So you see. And even in terms of care, you see, I'm always losing my umbrellas, okay? And this time, there is a store, like near my office, they leave made in France products, they sell, high quality, much too expensive. And I wanted to buy an umbrella because it was raining a lot. So I hesitated, I go in, I go out, I go in. Why for an umbrella? Umbrella, I will lose it. But I decided to go. And this umbrella is much more durable because I paid it well. It says a high quality, and I'm just watching my umbrella. I'm paying as much attention to my umbrella as to my iPhone. If I lost my iPhone, I'm just naked. I'm just a lost person in the world. Same thing with the umbrella, my watch. No, I take care. So you see, this is complicated, and it is extremely technical. And for that, we are much involved at the French, at the European level. I have two colleagues, Leonore and Frédéric, who are now in the conference in Copenhagen for some days. And we could take other example, but let's say we choose, what we do, we choose our or subjects. You know, I was asked to participate in a big project of like a European metaverse. The word metaverse, I'm just fed up with the word metaverse. And then I didn't feel it. I was not I didn't have knowledge enough to do something. I can go in a play something and make a and I know some kind of stuff on metaverse and virtualization, and I can make a conference in that and just hiding the part of the BS of what I would say and saying some good stuff. Otherwise, just mixing that with my experience. But I was not ready. We are not ready to go that, but we want to go into that. So this is the way we work. But what happened also, it was, you know, there are several things. In a way, we are extremely respected, but and even at the highest level, like we had these 2 dinners with the French President Macron, like with the designers, and this was absolutely great. And in another way, there is always this. We always have to take care to explain. I mean, the fact that necessary, like in any country, the decision makers say that science, technology, and pure and scientific research are the most important, and things has to be like useful somehow, and fashion. You see, so we have with the state body, we have to be convincing, but we have also great people there, so that we need to be influential and to explain that, and to be convincing. But in general, it works because we have good arguments. But that's happens for all the people. I am one of them, just fighting for like creative industries and for let's say for like decorative arts and fashion, and that's let's say roughly the situation. So we have the respect, we feel it. We would like to be more supported. And maybe there is one thing we have to take care, which is luxury. You know, the word luxury. Even if you go at the European Commission, that you don't. There is nothing about the luxury thing. That high end. You see, because luxury in a period in which inequalities are, for many reasons, are not going in the right sense, it's always like in a position to be somehow accused and things. So we have to explain that it is on the planet, the clients, and that it benefits also to like it is great and a lot industry. And in a way, people are very proud, and people can be. See, it's a paradox, like being some reluctant towards luxury and admiring Maria Grazia and Demna, Vesalia. Or there are many paradoxes like today, like being very strongly in favor of let's say sustainable development and buying products at shame, you see. So that is, let's say, it's a constant drive. But I chose when I decided my professional let's say career objective a long time ago was to be like a committed and engaged economist. So this is what I do, and with my colleague and with the others. And also we have one last thing in the French culture, which is that the French culture is embedded with the structural neurosis, which is celebrating the kings and celebrating those who kill the kings in the same way. And you see the political debates, it enlightens. If you think of that, the situation and what happens, you know. And I mean, what's happening now is so much witnessing that paradox. So we have to, we always have to show that we are on the side of like everybody, giving jobs, bringing revenues, bringing the French pride that the French wants so much to have, and so on. So I'm just ironical, but you see it's more global, it's also convictions. And also European stuff, European things. This is very important to develop.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks again for being here. I have 2 questions. So what do you think about catwalk crashers, like environmental artists coming into Fashion Week.
Sort of Extinction Rebellion, that type of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to hear more about what you thought about metaverse fashion.
Okay. So, concerning catwalk crashes and more generally environmental things, it's once again a good question and a good example of what's happening. Like fashion and high fashion is very visible, and it's much attacked because it's very visible, and it's attacked on a basis like which is not relying on calculations. It's just something like symbolic. And there are several things to say. Also, one of the things, and I get back to it, is that it is accused to encourage fast fashion. You know, I trade that. I will publish I wanted to make sure that I didn't have time. I meant there will be a collective book for IFM. Then I took my academic hat and I made an article. We will read that, which will be, it has been postponed, but hopefully it should be published soon with the professors of IFM. So, and I call that the future of Fashion Week. So I trade that. But let's say I tell you what we did. What we did is that in that case, like for other topics, we need to be in the forefront. So meaning to be in the forefront implied that in 2019, before the COVID crisis, I decided, and we decided to launch and to work and to launch an eco-design tool for shows. And we did that. We had money from the DEFI, not much, because we have to do with not so much money, because we cannot always have like the fees for the members. We cannot always say, hey, thank you very much, hey Joe, hey Karen, can you give us some money to do that? We have to be entrepreneurial. So we partnered also with PwC, the audit and consulting companies, and we have set up a tool which is operational. We're not ready to communicate yet, which is an eco-design tool for shows. So we have like a survey of 100 questions which have to be filled up by all the members and the invited, the guests at the Fashion Week. So they know exactly what's going on. And what are the conclusions? What do we see? We see that, what do we observe? Let's say a Fashion Week is like a small festival, because in the Fashion Week we have a few number of participants for the Fashion Week itself. Then there are the fairs and the market week around. But let's say the global participants, I mean, it's very, very much B2B. You have like the physical one, we have 5,000 people globally taking part to a Fashion Week. So it's if we compare to festivals or to other organizations, it's a small story. So then, of course, we have the scenography and the importance of the scenography. But the scenography, if we calculate in terms of, let's say, carbon impact, circular economy impact, which is a different data, but linked to the first one, and the societal impact, etc., all the things of CSR, let's say, the most important, that the scenography is important for some of the biggest houses, but it remains not so high in terms of calculation. And the trips are more important, like the flying trips, the flight. But it is a small numbers. It's like a few thousand, let's say, carbon tons, globally equivalent. A big show, a very big show, a huge show, a big show is something like 500 tons. A small show is 10 or 50 tons, nothing. So then the question is to correlate that to the economic impact and the global impact of that, not necessarily in function of the sales at that moment, because we are, as I often say, in creativity-driven marketing and not in consumer-driven marketing. So if we compare that, we are working on all that. So it is objectively, I could take many examples, it's not a big deal. But then it is very visible. And another very interesting point is that we have also incorporated the video, the environmental impact of the films done, the videos. And the point is that, so concretely, we take the number of videos which are seen during 3 days or even 1 week after the Fashion Week. And what happens is that impact is more important than the physical impact. And the people don't see that. There's a huge problem with the tech and with the videos and the films, a huge problem. There is a big debate of how much, and of course, this is very important for the blockchain, etc. Tech makes it so that things are improving. But still, to give you some examples, the 1 hour of streaming, has been calculated as representing 0.4 kilos of CO2, but that was by a French think tank, which was wanting to show that it was very bad, which is called the Shift Project. But the International Energy Agency has an evaluation at 0.36, and Netflix with Carbon Trust and University of Bristol, they made an evaluation at 0.55. And if you multiply, then you see how much it can represent. It's thousands very quickly. So how to communicate that, how to explain that? Because people don't, I mean, it's very technical. It requires a digital expertise and an energy and electricity expertise. I took my afternoon, this weekend, just working on that, and we were making some calculations, comparing the number of hours of streamings. We have good data for more for Americans than for the rest of the world, like the number of 10 hours of streamings per day or something. And then if we multiply, we can cross statistics. Like Spotify, it represents, that's 100 billion views into hours of streaming in 2021. And video games, it represents something that it came up with the pandemic, because people stay at home from 8 to 26 or something. So we have to have a global understanding and comprehension of the whole story. Because at that time, people will tell us, okay, you say that it's not important, that digital is more important. So why do you make digital? Okay, fine. Why do we like to listen to do we watch YouTube? Why do we listen to Spotify? So it's a global thing, and it requires a lot of effort and work, to be precise. My problem is to find time with the teams and the academic advisor that we have to work on that. But it is very much a purpose to be very accurate and very good in that. So the plan that we have, for instance, to show you precisely, we have an organization of, we have an internal with the members meeting probably on the 20th of June, and but maybe we postpone that for a while, because we'll have all the data, all the information. But we know that I mean, I think the problem that, and I get back to precisely to what you said, the problem is that for people who are very much into, let's say, ecology, which is amazingly important, let's say some people who are into that are people who believe before ecology, before environmentalists, to functionalism. If we take this apart, many people hate fashion. And sometimes, too often, environment is used as an argument for attacking fashion. And I say because the people who hate fashion, they make also a big philosophical and scientific mistake. They reason in terms of needs, the needs. Of course, the people who have nothing, they need to eat, and they need to, etc. They need to be dressed, and they need to have a good life. But the notion of desire is fundamental in economics. And this is why so many sociologists and economists, starting with Veblen and many people, were Baudrillard in France, and many. And this is sort of denied. So this is a new fight, like being extremely strong, like in these matters, the expertise and communicating of that. We are very much into that. And at the same time, not attacking the functionalists, but not being naive with what they say. And there is an argument with the taking, especially Extinction Rebellion, which is that fashion, that the shows nurture, give food to the fast fashion. So I mean, high fashion wants to differentiate from fast fashion, and is accused of developing fast fashion. You see, if there wouldn't be shows, there would be like artificial intelligence and other things, many other tools for fast fashion. The big problems, there's this notion that fashion represents 10%. I love this. You know, there's this word by Confucius saying that a lie, which is repeated 1,000 times, becomes a truth. This is what happens. Yes, there is a huge problem for fashion. There is a huge problem for the food industry. Many huge problems. So at least it's different from, in the tech community. Some people say it's a huge problem, it's too huge. If you would listen to them, we say, okay, so the earth is fucked up. I mean, let's leave that place. Just go to Mars and other places. And so there are huge problems, but that we need to address. But the big problem is, let's say, and the evaluations say 10%, between 10 and 2%. No matter, it's too much. But the question is volumes. The volumes and transportation. These are the big thing, and the fabrics where it's done. And the big thing with that is that the analysis that we are done and that we are praised are life cycle analysis. So when you reason with life cycle analysis, I took the example of one dress, one T-shirt. You reason product by product. You don't take the volumes into account. And even brands which make big efforts in reducing volumes, reducing the OTB, their buying policies with huge stocks. I mean, it doesn't appear in the metrics. So the question now is it's a running, just to be precise and to say things and to be very active and to propose measures, but to propose also measures with transparent metrics just to evaluate either to give them or to give the methodology to calculate, which can be discussed. I'm always speaking like an academic, and I need not to be only that because there is the communication scene and the political scene, but we have to go quickly and to be convincing. So, as far as I'm concerned, any time I will have the opportunity to debate and to speak with the people who crash, I will do it, and my team too. Well, if they want to kill me, I cannot do much. I mean, can try to fight, but but it's a big challenge. You see, the thing is, we are living and I go to the metaverse. We are living a digital revolution, an industrial revolution, with the digital technologies, and environmental revolution. But the thing is, the second one depends on will. The first one is, anyway, the technology always wins always, and so we have to just to crowd that. But many people have to. But it has to be seen also that the tech revolution is very complete. Brings a lot of problems. Because there are progresses, but at the same time, the screens are more and more just like energy consuming. On one side, there are less, but on the other side, because the quality is much better, it's also involved that. And the blockchain itself, the blockchain, it is complicated because the energy which has to be spent to find new like algorithms and new keys is very high. So it raises big problems like in Kazakhstan and other Eastern, Central Europe countries. So, but this is not treated because you see, there is a kind of panic with energy and ecology, which is a legitimate panic. And then the technology is coming, and the tech are coming, and all that has to be dealt. It's a big transformation. It's a big transformation, which is close to the one of 1 century before with the second industrial revolution. The only thing is that the Earth is not doing well, and in a worse situation. We need to read like science fiction authors, which makes a transition for talking about metaverse, because as you may know or not, do you know where it comes from, the word metaverse? Who invented that? The marvelous science fiction author Neil Stephenson, and he did that in 1992 in a novel, and at that time he also invented the word avatar, and he used the word metaverse because he didn't like virtual reality as a word. And so I think there is like a lot of enthusiasm. To me, it's interesting. It's like social engouement. You can say that engouement. Like people are enthusiastic about one fact, one factor. So to me, it's one more step in the virtualization of the world, and maybe more in the understanding that the world is going to be more and more virtualized, because the techniques are new. There is no disruption. There hasn't been disruption since last year. The techniques of augmented reality and the technique of virtual reality. And so there are one thing, which is one thing in the virtualization, and the other thing, which is the NFT and so on. And virtualization, works. It's more and more efficient, more and more well done. But then still, the question of the movement, and you see, for fabric, it's still. And it is far from being just so much from being right. So it's still different. So the physiological perception is not the same. For a bag, it's much better. For a static object, for a dynamic object or dynamic person, it's not so obvious. And so, but still, there will be many things. I'm sure I've sent for several years, but there will come a time in which there will be battles for avatars of some people, just to get to be in the first row in the virtualized fashion show. These things will happen. We are, like it started with Second Life years ago. But also the thing that this moment it's limited, because you have to go into universe like Decentraland. Many people don't understand that. They think, oh, we are going, and you consultant, the people, I'm going to show you. To be virtualized, I'm going to make with this brand the best metaverse, but then the CEOs don't always know what's happening, and for the brands which are not the biggest one, they don't have the experts with them. And concerning NFTs, the question of buying virtualized objects to work with the Sims, buying that, yes, it's natural, but it has to be integrated. All this has to be integrated in the understanding what a virtualized world is and how it interacts with the supposed to be real one. It's always a question of imagination. We don't need screens to have imagination. So I think the real point is that one. But then it goes by step for people to understand and to get used to that. Like 10 years ago, everything was 3D printing. I made a big report on that, not because of that, but because it's a really important thing. But then afterwards, augmented reality, and then afterwards, 3 years after, AI. But all this is part of the same virtualization process. I observe a small trend now, which is that the Web3, So now since some month, it's not only metaverse. You know, for those of you who speak French, I'm fed up with metaverse. So I say, when somebody tells me metaverse, I answer with this like a say, which is metaverse, il fait froid dehors. Ça me saoule. Metaverse, which means it's almost close to take your jacket. It's called, not exactly, metaverse. Not very funny, but at least it amuses me. So I think there is this big potential, and as I said, this Web3 or Web.3 or Web.3, Web 3.0, etc., is going, I think, to be the new word. But this is the global virtualization process, and this is why I think that the best people, I mean, just the social scientists prefer, like to use data, and but we can do something also with that, with science fiction authors like Asimov anticipated so many things. I mean, you should do that. You should work with science fiction authors. You know, I'm going in the Festival of Fier. I'm taking care for many years of the conferences there, and this time we are going to do something around metaverse. One technical panel, one creative panel, one economic, one, etc. All the aspects of metaverse. And my sort of dream, not a dream, I think it was so absolutely great. I imagine something which very probably will not work, but we never know, which will be sort of dialogue and just between Neil Stephenson, which talked about, and Demna Gvasalia, just talking about that. So this is my bet. I'm going to make it to try that. Yeah.
I know that many of you have questions, and maybe
It's fine.
a quick one, but I'm
No
really
time.
interested in how you see the shifting role of the Fédération in a world that's obviously changing drastically. So this idea of really Paris as the global fashion capital, this sort of original idea, you know, how can it still hold in a world that is in perception much more decentralized, that is looked upon as, you know, much more critical, in terms of these sort of hierarchies and centralized arguments. So it's really a question about sort of exclusivity and exclusion, and the notion of everybody has fashion and that there's skills in many other places in the world. You know, how does that picture of leadership still hold, and how do you see this shifting role?
It's a fundamental, strategic, and permanent question, the Federation. And it's, you're right. Then the question, there are several things. One thing is, what does that mean to be global capital in let's say, in an immaterial world somehow? And what is also, there's one thing which is about identity itself. And in my book on luxury and religions, I posed in the conclusion, I posed that questions, and the fact that the identity is always here around. And we could take other example, many countries and many culture. So this identity is of creativity and how is it? But still, of what I said in the beginning is something which is driving anyhow. This is one thing. But then the other thing is to stay on the same line while constantly innovating, which is difficult to tackle. But to stay on the same line, which is, like, to give you an example, when we had the sanitary crisis, very quickly we decided to set up and to create this Fashion Week online Fashion Week. So we discussed with the brands, and we did that with videos, and we have that. If you haven't seen it, if you Google like Paris Fashion Week, you will find a platform which will, with the magazine, events, and many things, and so we were happy with that. So that typically enabled us, in a world which was fully virtualized, to work, and with the videos which can be seen, and the house, and then we also partnered with YouTube and with Tencent on that. So to give you this example on that aspect, we had, but this is not the only one. We had like, let's say, it's not huge, but for the 4 fashion weeks, 2 menswear, 2 womenswear, and the couture week, we had, let's say, 1 million visitors on 2021, much more than our website. So we are merging that now. And with the partnership that we have set up with YouTube and Tencent, we went up to 1 billion. So when we saw like 1 billion, I said, wow, it's just great. And then I said, well, yes, but look at the song of Rihanna. I mean, let's remain humble. Let's remain humble. So this is also one thing, just to live, to cope with that global thing. So now we have put some constraints because we had some films in which we had, for instance, was supposed to be a fashion collection, and then it was a woman just riding a horse and doing 6 minutes, and that's it. So we are not a festival of films. We are a festival of we are Fashion Week. So that's one thing, and also to intensify it and to develop the contact and the relations and the cooperation on the international scenes with museums, with institutions. And also to be, the challenge is to be, but it has to be natural, not to be as a constraint, but to be very attractive for the designers themselves. So we have many, many applications. I mean, it still works, and it has been reinforced somehow, the fact that a brand is developing, and then at the time, after a moment, wants to show in Paris, to be a guest and to be a member. I had, just to give you like between each other, but we had a meeting yesterday with a great Indian designer, very well known, but which hadn't been accepted by the committee, but we talked with him, saying that we respected him a lot, and that is maybe to show first time here, because he's a new one, so just to show that he wants to be here, and then the committee will be invited and so on. So we have to stick to that. I give you another example. To take the example of American brands, we have great American brands with us. We have Tom Brown, who is showing again in Paris, and who is happy to be in Paris. We have like Amiri, who became, who is now a member. He didn't work. He applied. He didn't work. The committee is just even to show. So he did that off, and then afterwards he was accepted by a guest, and now he's a member. So we have to constantly do that, and then with inclusion, and the question is is exclusivity without exclusion, and that is the thing, just the delicate way. So, and it works for designers, and then also for, let's say, consumers and citizens. For designers, we are, I mean, Paris has objectively been always like open and trying just and searching always to be, for the same reason as I said for painters, and it has always to be like improved, to be developed, and to pay attention. And but I could take a number of examples. This is true for couture, and this is true for like for ready to wear. I give you just an example. I'm a musician, so I came to fashion through music at the time. That was the thing the first time. I came to fashion as an economist, and I was called because I developed programs. At the same time, I was playing in a rock band and keyboards and things, a lot of music. So I got back in 2016, and I thought there is a problem here. The music, the playlist, the only one. I mean, there was nothing groovy, just rock thing and. Okay, fine, beautiful things in indie things, no, and many great things in music, but no hip hop. I mean, how can you do that? I'm not talking only on the models. I'm talking specifically about music here. Bizarre. I found that bizarre. And it changed, it fully changed. Only Olivia who studied it at that moment. And I did this big move. And Virgil was one of the ones who totally changed that. Deeply. And why did he do that? Because Michael Burke knew him for a very long time, the CEO of Vuitton, and called him upon and so on. So things are moving. So the constant thing is the diversity. No, for instance, there are new Chinese designer. There's this national driving like Guo Chao, very national. But then we need to have the designers from that moment. But then the question for us is how do we integrate them? How do we scout them? How do we work on that? And we have like ambassadors in the different regions of the world who help us for that. And then the question is how not to be seen by excluding people. It's an old thing, an old debate, which is more tense now because everything is tense. It comes to me now, I haven't think, because you put the question, I haven't think of this for many years. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a demonstration, I think it was in London, and they were burning a cloth of Yohji Yamamoto. Yohji, from absolute respect. And one of those who changed fashion with the Japanese Reika Rakugo, and Yohji came, and Isemiya came before in the 80s. And then a journalist said to Yohji, what do you think of that? They burn your clothes. And he said, oh, yes, if I would be in their position, I would do the same thing. You see, but so this is the point. But at the same time, I mean, the access to the product, of course, for the cloth itself is extremely it's extremely expensive, but the sneakers, some other aspects, and the accessories are less expensive. So at least the people have access to the world, and if they want to buy, I mean, it has been, brands have been very successful all over the world. Then there is this big challenge of the equalities and inequalities all over the world, which is very strong. It's more that thing, I think, that the fact of inclusion, which has to come naturally, and which is changing also, which is keep on changing quickly. But your question is the question. It is the constant challenge to do that, because if not, we are going to be like the big brands which wouldn't see anything, and the people in the federation like me, the old bureaucrats saying, okay. So this is why we are constantly, we need to be constantly open to move into dialogue and to sometimes travel when we can, but at least to, I mean, the fact of working with Zoom and Teams change many things now. So it's a permanent drive. But I think, it's very much the question of the humanistic values and what it means nowadays. And it's a complicated question, because the way the humanistic values interact with cultural appropriation, it's a very delicate question. It's a philosophical question, it's a sociological cultural studies question, and it is also, but it's something that we constantly work about and discuss about and work about and want to preserve, and the respect of the other constantly. I mean, this is why we took that job. If this wouldn't be the case, I mean, I wouldn't be there, and my team neither. And working on the archive, Sophie would have told me, and I'm not sure. I have other stuff to do as a researcher. So because we believe, we try to be candid somehow, but to put actions in connection with values. I mean, it's, well, I don't know.
Do we have time for one final question?
Yeah, I have time.
A final question?
Yeah.
How do you think, in terms of economics, how do you think, the post-COVID-19 climate will affect the fashion industry?
Well, it depends on the brands. For brands which are turned toward international market, this has been very successful during that years. But now, because for brands which are more on the French or on the European market, it was very complicated. But the brands we're talking about are exporting by 90%. Once again, if we talk about environmental matters and volume, the volumes are 1,000 times lower than the volume of fast fashion. But the Chinese market was huge, booming huge. And then the American market too, extremely. But no, the thing is that everything is fragile. We don't know what will happen with inflation. We don't know what will happen now with the risk of recession. What will happen with the Chinese market? What will happen, etc., etc. And in terms of strictly economic matters, the Ukrainian war hadn't such in fashion as a huge impact in many, the food industry, wheat, many things. But in fashion, I would say less somehow even with the Russian market. But let's say it's going well, but it's very fragile. I mean, it's true that brands and CEOs and the brands have to be very agile now, permanently refounding their business plan and so on. Though the competencies of the knowledge of the executives and of the designers and cross knowledge is more important than ever, because you cannot rely upon a business model that will last a time of time. You know that you have to adapt. Like when there has been the lockdown in Shanghai, the luxury houses totally, very quickly, updated their business plan in a drastic way, tough way. But now it's better, so that's the way it is. The point is, there will be still many challenges. The second hand also will develop a lot. This is clear. Do you know that Vestiaire Collective, which has been created not such a long time ago, they're making now 1.2 billion euros as turnover. 1.2, very important. And it will develop and develop. And it is clear. The renting, I have a student who is working on the renting business, and so still Rent the Runway, this is doing very well and so on, but let's say it has been less strong than the second hand. So the markets are changing, the lifestyles are changing, many things are changing, and this is true in many industries. Look at the automobile industries, but in fashion industries it's very important. And then let's say the designer, the artistic the talented designers, creative directors, they can anticipate most of I don't know, but then they have to they feel it, I would say, so they anticipate that, and this is what we have seen with quite a number of them. You know what? Went to also to give another last quote of Pierre Berger. We said the talented creative designers are always unhappy megalomaniac, and he was adding, I know many who are happy, you know. So that was sort of a paradox. But this is very much, there is a link with aesthetic and art, but I mean fashion, it's the same thing. Fashion is not an art, but it can become when people who have artistic capacities do that. So it's always a question of a big evolution of markets now. But I'm sure your own behavior, some of you only buy second hand. Some of you are attached to brands, so there are many things. But at the same time, buying second hand doesn't mean that not liking brands. You see, it's because it's always a question of identity with fashion and accessories. It depends on the name that we give to fashion, and then we could talk also in terms of global market for clothing and fashion and shoes, etc., which is sort of, let's say, which declined in terms of budgetary coefficient, because there is also the tech thing. It depends on the growth rate, but then on the link between the growth rate and environmental matters, etc., which is another debate, which could be a seminar by itself.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
What I didn't mention maybe is that with emerging brands, what I see with emerging brands, that they are very much into sustainable development, very much into innovation, more than in the past, where they wanted to reproduce things. And if you look at and prices, which are not the one of big luxury, if you look at Jacques Mus, Marine Serre, and with great new models. Great creativity. I'm thinking also to take an American brand to finish, to Kit Super, where the designer of Kit Super, his comb is very creative, and he had a background in mathematics, and then he sold T-shirt, and he has set up a sort of Warholian factory, small one in New York, and he shows in Paris. So this shows it's also another way to answer. So we push also these emerging brands a lot, and inshallah for the future. Okay, so bye-bye then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.